Good day, everyone, or good night, wherever you may be when listening to this. Let's give thanks for a moment to God for giving us the beauty of nature that we may make paths to walk through. Thank you, God. I want to talk today about trauma. There's a lot of people who have experienced trauma in the world. Technically everyone to some extent, but there's varying degrees. I myself am relatively untraumatized compared to most people, but I still struggle with my little tiny traumas that I have received. But there are so many more people who have had really, really bad traumatic experiences on this world, and I would like to find ways to help them. One of the reasons that we end up with so much trauma in this world is that the relatively untraumatized, like me, are in fact traumatized by the idea that the world is more evil than we think. So if you are also one of the relatively untraumatized people in this world, please take a moment to understand that true evil is out there, and it is hurting people. And there's something we can do. The biggest thing that we can do is, well, number one, let's at least listen to people who have had traumatic experiences. If nothing else, at least listen to them. Although that won't be enough by itself. But by listening to people, at least the first step is they will be heard. A lot of people have suffered trauma and they're not even heard. Because when they do go to people who are relatively untraumatized, the relatively untraumatized person has to adjust their worldview to include the evil that happened to the other person. And that can't happen in an instant. So it causes a minor trauma in the person listening. If you are a traumatized person, you probably know what I'm talking about when you tried to share what happened. And you didn't get a reaction that you felt was good. And I would imagine you did not feel heard or validated. Now, that's kind of the expected reaction for lesser traumatized people to have. That they have to expand. They need time to expand their view of evil in the world. We do. That happened to me too. The first time someone came to me and said, "Hey, this really bad traumatic thing happened to me," I couldn't handle it. Not at the time. It took a long adjustment period. Maybe it was just that one evil dude that perpetuated the trauma, right? It couldn't be that the whole world was filled with them. It's just that one guy. No, it took a long time, and hearing many, many stories before I understood how evil is really working in the world. Through fear, but also by keeping those that hold the higher standards because they are lesser traumatized. Well, that's not the reason that they hold the higher standard, but it's helpful to get to be there, to start from there. But the untraumatized have to become slightly traumatized in order to understand the depths of evil that does exist. And without that understanding, well, traumatized people just look crazy. So, if you are among the more untraumatized, relatively, I would encourage you to look up what's really going on in the world. You want a good start, look at some of the habits around children in Hollywood. Now, I don't want to depress you either, but you kind of need to know what's going on if we're going to fix these problems. But I'm not just talking about that type of problem. People you meet every day. Most of them have, many at least, have gone through some sort of trauma. I didn't talk about the other type of person that is basically defending the evil in the world, and that is the traumatized who have embraced the evil themselves. They had evil done unto them, and they were unable to process why. Why did it happen to them? They were unable to do that without turning to evil themselves. Even if they're not perpetuating it directly anymore, they will perpetuate it indirectly by defending the actions of others that are perpetuating trauma. This situation is most notable among women who are mothers perpetuating trauma to their children. These are the ones that have embraced the evil, not ones that have processed it. So it's a complicated subject, for sure. Because it really does seem that the human soul starts out as good, and if treated well, has high standards for how to behave in the world. And it's only through trauma that these standards seem to be lowered, and in some cases turn people to evil, and in the worst cases, those people perpetuate the trauma to others. So, if you have a friend, this is the first thing I want to ask. If you have a friend and he or she shares a traumatic story and you can't handle it, at least ask them for a timeout. Let them know you really care about them, but you need some time, and come back. Right? Whether it's a week or even a month, come back to them and say, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize the depths of evil that existed in the world when you told me about what happened to you. I couldn't handle it. I've tried to adjust my frame here. Can we try again? I want to hear your story. I want to hear what happened to you. I want to know how I can help." Some people insidiously claim that there are attention seekers out there. But keep in mind, those people, if they're seeking attention, are doing so because they were traumatized. Maybe the story they're telling is not the truthful one in some instances, but somewhere they were hurt. Also keep in mind you can't help everyone, but if someone's really your friend, at least, if you think they're a good person before they open their mouth to tell you, to open up about this horrible experience that they had, those are the people you really need to listen to, right? You don't need to listen to a stranger that you don't know that well. You have no connection with that person. You can hear their story, but and sometimes there are things you can do, but I'm talking about the real intimate friendships that you have where you're really connecting one-on-one with someone and they've decided you are someone who should finally know, you're finally close enough to them, they should know what that you should know what happened to them, right? They trust you. If you can't hold that trust in the present, but you value that person, do what you need to hold that trust soon. Be willing to understand that there are depths of evil in the world that you had not seen before. Even if you have seen some pretty terrible evils, you may have only seen a scratch on the surface, or maybe there's some other tangential evil that you had not seen. And that's important. It's important to listen. It's important to find out what you can do. It helps people heal if they've been validated. And if someone just says, "Holy shit, man, that's terrible. That should never have happened to you." So just have some basic human compassion is really the summary of the message. I think this is the first step to solving many of the evils in the world. There is a relationship between what's happening on the individual level and what's happening on the geopolitical scale. We are, in a way, at war with our friends if we can't open up to them, if they can't open up to us. If we open up to each other, then that will begin the process of transforming the entire world. So if you're sitting at home wondering, oh hey, what can I do? Because I've got somebody in my political district I don't like, because, you know, he does evil stuff, or she does evil stuff, or they do evil stuff. And there's, you know, my country is rattling some sabers with some other country. And it's not the people of the other country that anybody has a tiff with, right? It's all these politicians and their special interest groups. They're the ones rattling the sabers. People who live day to day in the other country, they're just getting the same old we are from their politicians. Oh, this other country is a threat. We need to defend ourselves. We need to defend our interests. Start connecting with the people you already know. Watch the world become a better place.